mistakes when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out, maybe it's the chemistry. It's time to break up so I can make a better me. Better believe in your mind, cause it's everything. You can mold, shape, find almost anything. All it takes is some time and some clarity to find your identity. It's mind over everything.
What is up, you heathens and demons? You sinners and saints. You beautiful, blasphemous bastards. Welcome back to the Raging Atheist. I'm finally feeling somewhat decent. My back is okay to be sitting here. How are y'all doing? As always, I have to thank Geo Sam for making the new intro. He makes most of my intros for me. I used to make mine back in the day, but they sucked. So yeah, I definitely am grateful for that. Thank you, Geo Sam. And this one is going to be something. It's going to be something. We're going to start looking at a couple groups today that, you know, I was never aware of in all of my extensive research on cults. But I was looking more for religious cults. And I guess, you know, one of the cults we'll be looking at today, I guess can be considered religious, although I don't think most of its members actually believes in a real Satan. I think some of them do. But yeah, we're going to be looking at a couple new groups today. A couple groups, a group that I've talked about for I found out about 2 weeks ago on a stream, looking at this FBI dude talking about right-wing extremist groups that he had infiltrated, and he had talked about an order of 9 angles, an even more secretive group than these neo-Nazi groups that he had been infiltrating, and a group that recruits from groups like the neo-Nazi groups that he had been infiltrating. So today I'm going to start really kind of looking at that. Now, usually for these crazy cults, like, you know, like when I did 12 tribes, there was like a lot of research that went on beforehand. And this time that didn't happen. This time, the only research I've done is, you know, listening to a couple streams and pretty much while my back was out and deciding that I'm going to talk about it. And I've decided, like, because I consider these two groups especially, and all the offshoots of them, the 764 group, the 764 cult is an actual offshoot of the Order of 9 Angles. But like, usually I'd have a lot of stats, statistics. I know, like with 12 Tribes cult, there was this big, still ongoing, I'm assuming, controversy of people disappearing, especially at like music festivals. And a lot of people were pointing fingers at 12 Tribe cult and their compounds, an extensive network of compounds, moving these people from place to place so family members can't find them. You know, but this is a different kind of cult that we're going to be looking at today. And it's going to take, for one, there's not that kind of information on them. And what information that we're getting is kind of new, but there is information out there for me to find. So I'm going to have to do my research on them. I just haven't yet. So this is pretty much the start of that research. And I figured, you know, maybe I'll stream some of these research streams. Now, I'm not, this isn't going to actually be a research stream. It's going to be a react stream. But I'm thinking of doing some like research streams as I really start delving deeper into these groups. This is just going to kind of be a preamble today. This is where I'm going to shift my focus. Now, we'll still be talking about the fascist. We'll still be talking about Charlie Kirk. But I want to get back to doing what I do. I've spoken a lot about, the changes I've made to myself, spiritual changes, Taoism, philosophical Buddhism, but I'm still essentially the same. I still essentially think the same when it comes to like religion and supernatural mumbo jumbo. But these groups are slightly different. I think it's very possible that the Minnesota school shooter was possibly a member of 09A, the Order of Nine Angles, or one of its affiliate groups. Man, I keep getting these. Hopefully the stream's okay. Like my computer really seems to be struggling right now. So hopefully the stream's going to be okay. And I just really need to make it to getting a new computer. It's about 4 months away, maybe 5. So I really need this computer to do what I need it to do for now. It's gonna really upset me. So hopefully the stream is gonna be fine. And we're gonna get into it. This first group, the Order of Nine Angles, again was mentioned by this FBI agent that had went undercover. These are scary people. I don't think all of them believe in a literal Satan, but a lot of them do. And this person will get into it. Now, there was quite a few of these that I could have watched. I've chosen to watch this one. I feel like she conveys a lot of information quicker than some of the other docs on it, I guess, or podcast, or, I watched a variety. And I considered using her as well for the next one, but I decided not to do that. But she's pretty good. She gets a couple things wrong, which I think a lot of people are going to do as more and more people find out about this. Now, all of this is in the context of the era of America we are currently living in. The Trump administration, Trump coming out saying his right-wing extremists are basically they just don't want crime. Right, that's the right-wing extremism. They don't want crime. They're very nice people. And we live in an era where he's pointing the finger at very moderate corporate Democrats, calling them left-wing extremists, which terrifies the fuck out of me, who is an actual real left-winger. I'm not an extremist. I don't consider myself an extremist. I'm pretty sure plenty of people do. I try to be honest when I do get extreme on positions. Like my gun position is an extreme position. It's a utopian dreamer position that I know isn't practical. So I'm often willing to compromise those positions to get to a more applicable stance. This group and people in this group don't care about any of that. They don't care if they're extreme. And while this group here, Order of Nine Angles, is primarily going to recruit from and be extreme far right wing, it doesn't mean that they can't see situations to where a left winger might be good for them. If they can turn a left winger, if a left winger fits the mold of target that they're looking for. So I think both of these groups can really be apolitical if they want to. Especially the second group we'll be looking at today, but even this first one, even though it's primarily far extreme right, like you think of the far extreme right, and you even go beyond MAGA, you even go beyond Nick Fuentes, you go to the Oath Keepers, you go to the Proud Boys, the Boogaloo, but this is even beyond that, and this can be apolitical. Because these people care nothing about being consistent with political philosophy. They care nothing about anything other than the ultimate goal, which is immortality. And you only achieve immortality from immoral, indecent, murderous, violent acts. And that's the whole point of it. So this is going to be an introduction to these groups, and we're going to be delving a lot deeper into these groups and all of their offshoots, because I do think that this is, well, for one, the second group especially is terrifying to me as a father. And I don't think enough parents know that these things are going on. I think that it might have like broken the national surface of attention with the whole Roblox scandal, and Roblox and Discord really going through and getting a lot of these Discord servers and getting rid of them. But as soon as you get rid of them, another one pops up. And these people seem to be ahead of the curve. And, they don't really care about getting caught, which is fucking terrifying. So we're going to get into this first one, Order of Nine Angles. This is brutal shit, yo. And the other reason I'm using this one as opposed to some other ones is this one isn't as graphic as some of the other ones are. And this is more of an introduction to it, because we're talking, I'd always considered pedophiles to be the greatest of all evil. But this is even beyond that. A pedophile is somebody that's attracted to a younger person. A lot of these people, and CP is going to be a very dominant theme, and not in all of its ugliest versions of what we're looking at today. And they don't do it. Some of them, I'm sure, are attracted to the young people, but they do it for the chaos, the destruction, the psychological effect it's going to have on that young person and the people around them. Right? It's a level of evil that even I, as a writer, have never really allowed myself to go to, because it's a level that once you start thinking about it, it's fucking terrifying that people like this exist. And it's not just some random ass serial killer who hopefully will eventually be caught. These are networks of people that thrive off of nihilistic violence, and it's disgusting. So let's get into this shit.
In the murkier corners of the internet, where encrypted chat rooms and obscure forums intersect with extremist propaganda, a name surfaces again and again. The Order of Nine Angles, or O9A. To casual observers, it might appear as little more than a fringe satanic group. But to counter-terrorism experts, journalists, and grieving families of radicalized...
See, I really don't understand YouTube. See, I've never really cared about YouTube and its words that they allow and they don't allow. And I've especially not really cared about it since I've been demonetized. But like the words that people have to censor blows my fucking mind, right? Like she can sit there and talk about satanic. Not going to have to censor that. But terrorism, right? You're going to have to censor that word. Like, as with everything, the right wing takes an issue and they'll be on the right side of it for all the wrong reasons, right? Like censorship is a huge problem, but censorship of like you being a racist and somebody being like, hey, your racism isn't very cool, maybe you should stop. And you're like, fuck you, freedom of speech, bro. So a person like calls your job and gets you fired. I don't really see that as like a censorship issue, as like you're just a dumbass issue, right? But like censorship in its real form is like a serious issue. We should be talking about terrorism, especially right now when we have a president of the United States trying to redefine what terrorism is. Trying to point the finger at Antifa as terrorists because, you know, he's a fucking fascist. And of course, fascists don't like anti-fascist. You know, we are your enemy. If you're a fascist, you know, like it's that fucking simple. Now, some people in the Antifa circles get carried the fuck away, but everybody does, especially when your adrenaline's pumping and you're standing nose to nose with a fucking Nazi. You do that shit and see how well you react. You know, so like the last time I looked at the numbers, there's been like 3 murders by Antifa, and all of them were outside of the realm of like actual Antifa activity. It was like, you know, scorned lovers and regular murder type shit, right? I could be wrong about that. And again, I hadn't looked in those numbers in quite a while, but last time I looked at those numbers, that's essentially what it is. Like all the fear mongering that you get on like Fox News about Antifa, like, you know, killing people, or it's just fucking nonsense. It's not something that they do. They stand nose to nose with fascists, KKK, Klan, Confederates, proud neo-Nazis. They stand face to face with them, toe to toe, and they fight them. Sometimes with their fists, sometimes with clubs, sometimes with rocks, you know, bricks. But they fight them. I don't have a problem with that. In fact, I support that.
Youth, the O9A represents something far darker, a philosophy of esoteric violence that has inspired extremists across continents. What sets O9A apart from other occult movements is not just its fascination with satanic ritual, but its fusion of mysticism, fascism, and theism. Its writings call not merely for self-discovery through ritual, but for culling, the euphemism for murder as a form of initiation. Its members have been linked to neo-Nazi plots, lone wolf extremists, and more recently to Group 764, a shadowy online network accused of grooming teenagers into acts of violence in the name of the order. We actually covered it in my last video here.
Yeah, and that's the second group we'll be watching, and that again, that's a group that is a direct offshoot of the Order of Nine Angles. Excuse me.
Now, the story of 09A is one of transformation from a strange self-published set of occult pamphlets in the 1970s England to a transnational digital cult influencing some of the most volatile extremist subcultures of the 21st century. It is a tale of how ideas, once confined to obscure zines and secret gatherings in rural Britain, became weaponized in the internet age. And we are covering it all. So sit back, relax, and take a deep breath. It's time to let the fresh air in.
Yeah, people are getting creative with their names. Let the fresh air in. Let the fresh air in, but it's spelled as her name, Aaron. That's just I dig that shit. That's creative. I like that.
Children of the future.
How the fuck does she do that? She had a skip ahead option. Oh, I've been gone from YouTube too long. I got things I need to learn, it looks like.
So back in the 60s and 70s, it was a cultural moment when the occult revival was sweeping Britain. Aleister Crowley's Thelema, Anton LaVey's Church of Satan, and Wicca were all attracting followers who were eager to rebel against Christian morality and mainstream society. But amid this eclectic mix of alternative spiritualities, one man began to articulate something uniquely sinister. That man was David Mamet, though for years he preferred to remain in the shadows using...
all right. I thought she was going to like get into a full explanation. I can't remember if she does on who this man is. So this man, to this day, he says he's not the founder of Order of Nine Angles. He's still alive. He's a very evil man. No, he's the type of person that makes it really, really hard to be a non-violent person. Like he's just evil scumbag. And he really believes in the concept of infiltration. And he lives two lives. So one life, he's David Nyatt. He is the guy that started Order of Nine Angles, was a neo-Nazi. He's also not a white man, as far as I understand. And he's also, I can't remember his Islamic name, but he's an extreme jihadist, fundamentalist Islamic dude as well. And I'm sure she'll talk about it a little bit. Like I said, there were like more extensive ones that I could have watched right now, but those were ones that I'm actually using for like research purposes. This is just a taste of these groups, especially the second one. If you're a parent, you're going to really want to know about it. Really need to be aware of what your kids are doing on Discord, on Roblox, on Instagram, on any of these social media sites, because these monsters are targeting them specifically. Your children are being targeted. So it's time to wake up as a society, I think. Well, yeah, I get what you're saying, Kit Hovind, but it's definitely real. Like it's, and there are ways, for you to become affiliated with, the legends of the cause. Like say if you want to go Black Bloc, there are ways for you to go Black Bloc and to be associated with Black Bloc, right? So I agree with what you're saying, but at the same time, like there is some underlying structure, especially when it comes to the legends of Antifa, the ones that have been around doing it for fucking ever. But yeah, it's not like some network of quote unquote cells. I mean, we're going to be getting a lot of that, especially with Order of Nine Angles. The other one kind of exists on these Discord servers, but Order of Nine Angles really kind of like relies on just different aspects. They're gonna rely. I forgot where I was fucking going. I forgot where I was going. I'm not happy with this camera. I've really got to replace my camera because it throws me off every fucking time. I think half the time I forget my thought is because the camera bothers me. It's too fucking. The frame is too small. It's too fucking small. So like my head is all out. I need a wider span frame on my camera, and I bought a cheap camera and I can't do it, and it's really driving me fucking insane. My OCD is going crazy. So yeah, I forgot my thought.
Pseudonyms like Antong Long, but he was born in 1950.
And there are ways to find out where you can go, not to meet, but to organize for the rally, right? Like, so, like your neo-Nazis, they're gonna do what was it, Fight the Right or whatever the fuck it was, at Charlottesville, and so there's gonna be like Discord servers, there's gonna be Facebook groups, there's going to be places you can go to find out where you need to be at these important events.
And was already deeply enmeshed in Britain's far-right scene by the 1970s. He was rubbing shoulders with neo-Nazis and radical extremists. Awesome. But unlike many who pursued fascism through politics, Mayat sought to fuse political extremism with mystical initiation. The result was what he would later call the Order of Nine Angles. O9A's origins are deliberately shrouded in myth. In its earliest texts, Anton Long claimed the...
Oh yeah, no, I know, Kent. I think I got... Where Jamie Ryken or Jamie Russell is trying to start an argument argument with me on Facebook over it. I live in Portland. That's not true. You know, talking about like it is burning and shit. Because I posted something on Facebook about, you know, peaceful, you know, people just being chill. That's not true. I live in Portland. Such a fucking cultist.
Group descended from a secretive pre-Christian tradition in the British Isles, supposedly preserved by rural witches and pagan mystics. The story told of a hidden order passed down through covens in the English countryside, with knowledge of esoteric rituals and dark gods unknown to mainstream occultists. But investigative scholars and journalists have since demonstrated that this was all a fabrication. There's no credible evidence that exists of such a lineage. Instead, O9A appears to have been largely the invention of Myatt himself, who stitched together fragments of pagan folklore, occult writings, and of course his own political ideology into a new system. The 9 angles themselves were not inherited from an ancient pagan tradition, but lifted from earlier occult references, particularly Hermetic and neo-pagan symbolism. And I find it increasingly fascinating that this was supposed to be a rebellion against Christianity and the Catholic Church, when the Catholic Church is notorious for actually stealing a bunch of pagan traditions and then putting a new label on them and then branding paganism as like work with the devil.
So essentially what she's saying, you know, in their propaganda to recruit people, to try to give it some form of legitimacy, that they try to say that this is a tradition that has been around since even before Christianity, before Christ, and that it was passed down by like druids and you know, Britannia before, you know, way back in the fucking day. And it's just not true. This is all shit. This David Myatt, however you pronounce his name is. I couldn't even find him on Wikipedia. I think, you know, it's often the case with a lot of these fuckers that their shit gets buried. You've got to really, really look for it. But I just might be mispronouncing his name as well. But, you know, like this dude just pieced together, you know, different things from different ideologies, kind of to form this mythos around, I guess you would call it a Christian version of Satan, but even it goes beyond a Christian version of Satan. It's like Satan is this like dark god, this like avatar of destruction. Some of these crazy fuckers will have like Hitler as part of their pantheon. Hitler being like a god of chaos. It's just fucking insane shit. But you know, you're gonna be somewhat insane to buy into it, but even beyond that, they're looking for and recruiting mostly from you know, like neo-Nazi organizations. So people that, you know, might consider themselves Christian but are probably spurned by mainstream Christianity. So they're kind of enveloping a mysticism around this ideology to say, hey, this is just as legitimate as your religion too, when in fact it's just this you know, arbiter of chaos, this David Myatt dude who really wants society to fall, you know, and in the ashes, you know, the great order can arise. It's crazy fucking shit, but it's bringing people in, you know, and now we live in a country to where it's like, is our, you know, the FBI were looking at these people here in America because this is transnational. They were looking at these people 2 years ago, a year ago. Are they looking at them now? You know, and we haven't even got into the shit that they do yet. And this shit's going to be wild as we get deeper and deeper and deeper into it. You know, initiates are usually very young, So like they're bringing in very young people, often from like a Proud Boys or a Boogaloo group or an Oath Keepers, or any of the hundreds of groups like them all across the country. Groups that have thrived in the age of the internet. And they're often recruiting very young people, and they'll take these initiates and they'll take them out into the middle of fucking nowhere, in the middle of the woods, and just keep them there and make them go on this mythical fucking journey to get back to survival. And it's all about isolation. It's all about breaking a person, desensitizing them to being able to do very, very violent things. Again, a lot of these people will participate in CP and worse than that, sexual torture. And it's not so much because they get their kicks off of it, although I'm sure they enjoy it. It's because of the effects it's having on their victims. That's what they're getting. That's the reason for it, which is just, to me, it makes it so much more worse than some sick sexual fucking, thing. It's so much worse than that. It's a desire for pain, for chaos, for disorder, and ultimately for modern society itself to completely fall. It's fucking insane, man. It's fucking like how do you get to that point to where you just want to see the world die?
So it's interesting that in this rebellion from Christianity or Catholicism, David over here is just doing the same thing that Catholics did. It takes one to know one, I guess.
I'll be right
So
back.
by crafting this mythic backstory, O9A could present itself as a more authentic, more dangerous, and more secretive than rival satanic movements. Now, by the late 1970s and early 1980s, O9A began publishing pamphlets and grimoires that circulated through the British occult underground. Among the most influential were the Black Book of Satan, which was a manual of rituals that invoked dark deities and emphasized the necessity of secrecy. There was also Neos, a practical guide to modern magic, which was a handbook outlining O9A's system of initiation and self-transformation. There was the Hostia, a compilation of essays framing O9A as a sinister alternative to mainstream Satanism, which is so funny they were calling Satanism mainstream at all. But what distinguished O9A's texts from the playful rebellion of LaVeyan Satanism was their explicit embrace of transgression and violence. Where LaVey spoke of Satan as a symbol of individualism, O9A texts presented Satan as a literal cosmic force aligned with destruction. To progress spiritually, the initiate had to embrace real-world acts of danger, law-breaking, and in some cases, murder. From its beginnings, O9A functioned not as a mass movement, but as a cultic network of small, secretive nexions, or cells that could operate independently, yet share a common ideology. These nexions would gather for rituals, study the texts, and initiate members through insight roles, tasks that were designed to test loyalty and commitment. The insight role system would later become infamous. Members were encouraged to infiltrate hostile or dangerous groups, police forces, military units, rival religions, as a way of both strengthening themselves and trying to weaken society from within. Unlike many occult groups that remained insular.
And it goes deeper than that. So when she talks about especially infiltrating the military, that's something that O9A has done. So there are people in the military right now that are O9A. They don't promote it. It's not something that you're going to see tattooed on them. You might see satanic imagery tattooed on them, but you'll never see O9A anywhere. And they'll usually belong to other groups and claim that group when O9A is where the heart is. You know what I'm saying? So But the reason that, especially to join the military, and especially during times of war, they want their initiates seeing war. They want to desensitize them to death and murder, right? They want them to be willing to commit murder in a moment's notice, sometimes just to be arrested. That's another thing that I'm not sure if she'll talk about it, but it's something that we'll get into as we as a channel learn more about this group. I've already delved fairly deep. I shouldn't say that I have done no research. I mean, I went pretty deep. I made a choice on what I was going to show you today, but I haven't done like my typical research at all. But the military, not only do you get that desensitizing to violence, but you get that military structure, you get arms training, you get a sense of, succumbing to authority, doing what you're told, following orders. And they want that structure in their little cells. I can't quite remember. It's some weird word that she should start using. She's going to mispronounce a couple of the words. But it's even like, I don't even know what the shit means. Like, I don't know what a zine is. Like I'm a 48-year-old dude. I don't know what a zine is. She calls it a zine, but it's pronounced zine. And I'm like, all right, I got that clarification. But what the fuck is it? I don't know.
O9A explicitly encouraged subversion of mainstream institutions. During the 1980s, O9A remained a small underground presence. Its ties to Britain's far-right scene, however, did not go unnoticed. Security services began to take interest in the blending of occult ideology and neo-Nazi politics, though at the time it was still regarded as fringe. Myatt himself oscillated between direct political activism, joining neo-Nazi organizations such as the National Socialist Movement, and his more esoteric role as Anton Long. By the close of the 80s, O9A had established the building blocks of its cult identity. We have a mythic lineage that was fabricated but...
All right, so Anton Long was the pseudonym that David used when he started the O9A. Now, to this day, David still says that he had nothing to do and has nothing to do with O9A. The West needs to be destroyed because Allah is God. That's what David would tell you to this day. But it's the dude. He's the dude. And I'll have my camera back on as soon as my daughter's out of here.
Compelling to recruits. A set of grimoires outlining the ritual practice and ideology. We have that...
I should say he is the dude most people have come to consensus is the dude. For legal purposes, I think you have to say it somewhat in that kind of way. But he's the fucking guy.
Cell-based structure of nexions, and we have a doctrine that violence and transgression were central to spiritual advancement. So this was not just Satanism. It was an experiment in ideological fusion. Occult mysticism serving as a gateway into political extremism, and extremism framed as mystical. Now, if the Order of Nine Angles began as a strange fusion of occult mysticism and far-right extremism, its belief system soon evolved into a doctrine unlike any other. Where many occult groups relied on symbols, theater, and myth, O9A sought to collapse the boundary between ritual and reality. In its worldview, the initiate's spiritual growth depended on embracing those transgressions, and not just metaphorically, but literally. By the late 80s and early 90s, O9A texts had codified a system of beliefs and practices that blended Satanism, paganism, and esoteric fascism into a coherent framework. These practices became the hallmark of O9A's cult identity, distinguishing it from other occult sects and foreshadowing its later influence on extremist movements worldwide. Central to O9A philosophy is what its text called the Sinister Way. Unlike mainstream Satanism, which often positions itself as atheist rebellion, the Sinister Way insists that dark forces described as acausal entities or dark gods are real. To align oneself with them, initiates must pursue personal transformation through ordeals of hardship, risk, and moral inversion.
All right, so O9A has no interest in profiting from crime. No interest at all. In fact, it kind of goes against their ideology to profit from crime. Somebody in the O9A is probably going to be poor, like me. You know, they're gonna if they work at all, they're gonna work paycheck to paycheck. It's gonna appear like they barely survive. And most of the time when they're interacting with normal public like that, it's staking it out, right? They're looking for victims. So the whole time they're at work, you might be working next to this person, and he might be, buddying you up. But it's all to measure you, to see if you're the right kind of victim, because they want their victims to be just normal people, right? If they're going to sacrifice you to Satan, well, they're not going to go after the Elon Musks of the world or trying to make some great show. They're going to go and get some normal fucking person. And then they're probably going to sacrifice your entire family together and make you watch as your children are sacrificed, as your wife is raped and sacrificed. And then you will probably be raped and sacrificed as well. Oh, and your children were raped. I didn't mention that part, because the more evil they act, then those dark gods are watching. And again, a lot of people will tell you, and I have to believe, like, most people don't really believe in the supernatural bullshit. They just do it because they're fucking, something's gone wrong, and it seems to be happening to more and more people. With all this access to this unfettered content, like the internet is this wild thing that, man, is this really complex issue of privacy and government overreach. But then it's like this wild west of the internet is really fucking people up. And this, and this shit's been going on before the internet, but the internet only amplifies it. Order of Nine Angles started back in the 60s and 70s, but now in the age of the internet, like, before they had to like photocopy their I guess you would call them scriptures, their grimoires, whatever they call them. They would have to photocopy them so they can give new copies to the initiates. But now, you can send PDF files. You can have Discord servers and Roblox servers and all these servers where children are completely 100% online. For me, I think I was fortunate that I made myself watch the movie Cuties to do a reaction on this channel because Christians were flipping out about it. And there's good reason, legitimate reason to flip out about that movie, I think. But what the Christians were saying about it wasn't what it was. And in fact, what it was this really big eye-opening wake-up call. Like, your kids are online just like you are. And it's unfettered. And if you think that you've got them blocked in any kind of way, they're smarter than you. Like, they've gotten around that block. Trust me. You need to be aware of what they're doing. Because these people are everywhere now. They can get into every home now. They don't have to break in. But essentially, when they're, I got off my point. Essentially, when they're in public, they're staking out. They're looking for their victims. And a lot of times they're going to try to, especially if it's like human sacrifice, they're going to try to do it in a way where it's not going to be talked about on national news. A family disappears and you never see him again type shit. Right? And the scary thing is, I don't even think the FBI knows how many of these motherfuckers are out there. Like I can't believe I'm blanking on the name of what they call their cells, but who knows how many cells of these people and groups like these people beyond the accelerationist groups that we know about. Everybody knows about the Oath Keepers. Everybody knows about the Proud Boys, the Boogaloo Boys, you know. But there's so much out there that we just don't fucking know. And now we have, like, you know, presidents and a political party going mask off, or I guess you can say going white hood off. You know what I'm saying? How many of these groups are out there, and is the FBI even looking at them now? Because according to the president, their extremists they just care about crime. But these people, their whole purpose is to live a life beyond even what we would consider crime. There's no other way to describe the life that these people are trying to live outside of just nihilistic terror. Rape, sodomy, murder. They're walking down the street and there's a fucking cop, right? And they think they got a shot. Nobody's gonna know it was them. They're gonna take the shot. You know, monster is not a good enough word. The only word that really fits to describe people like these are demons, but too many people use that word in some supernatural context. These are just, they're beyond human at this point. They're not human anymore. Their depravity has made them something different. They think they're, you know, like demigods. You get to the end of the 9 angles and you are immortal. But it's the odds of you actually getting there, you know, committing all this shit, doing all this shit. Man, like I don't know what had to have happened to you in life to make you turn down this path.
The Sinister Way is presented as a path of 7-fold initiation. It's a progressive system in which each stage requires the initiate to confront.
These streams are always the most uncomfortable, Kent Hovens. These are the ones that people want to see me talking about Charlie Kirk, you know, but these are the ones that are uncomfortable because this makes you not safe. Nobody's safe. You know, we live in an illusion of safe, but we're not safe.
Deeper challenges and embrace ever greater transgressions. Unlike structured religions with congregations, O9A's framework encourages individual testing and secrecy, giving its Nexions the flexibility to adapt and survive without central leadership.
Nexions is what they call their cells. And I'm sure that there's some like occult reason for calling it that, but that's what Nexions.
Is paramount. One of the strangest features of O9A cosmology is its belief in the acausal, a metaphysical realm outside ordinary time and space inhabited by entities known as the dark gods. Unlike Christian demons or pagan deities, these dark gods are described as primal forces of chaos, destruction, and entropy. In O9A myth, human civilization is destined to collapse, making way for a new aeon in which these entities will return to dominance. The initiate's role is to hasten that collapse, serving as a catalyst for chaos. Rituals invoking the dark gods were not intended merely for psychological effect. O9A texts suggested that through these practices, people could literally connect with those acausal energies, gaining strength to disrupt the causal world. This cosmology provided both a spiritual justification and a practical mandate to destroy the present order of society as a sacred duty. Perhaps the most notorious aspect of O9A practice is the concept of insight roles. Initiates were instructed to spend between 6 months and 2 years immersing themselves in a hostile or alien environment, deliberately adopting roles that tested their loyalty and their commitment. Examples of insight roles would include joining a rival religion, or enlisting in law enforcement or the military to learn discipline and new skills.
So, and that's what a lot of people think that David Nyatt did when he became a jihadist. This is an insight role. And to this day, he remains a jihadist, and probably will until he dies, which will hopefully, I'm not going to say that, but you know what I'm thinking. I don't wish death on no man, but like if natural shit's going to come along, like let it be quicker than later, right?
Entering criminal organizations or extremist political groups, all because the goal.
I know Ken Hovind. I am too, man, and I can't seem to stop. Like I need to like Google how to delete Facebook. I really do. I want to delete Facebook because I can't seem to stop talking shit about what I'm seeing, and yeah, I'm probably already in the book.
Goal was twofold. One, to transform the individual through hardship, and two, weaken mainstream institutions from within. By inhabiting the worldview of others, initiates were supposed to transcend ordinary morality and strengthen their capacity for manipulation, violence, and secrecy. Critics would later identify insight roles as a blueprint for infiltration, particularly in the way O9A encouraged members to embed themselves within the armed forces or extremist political movements. Now, this element of practice blurred the line between esoteric ritual and real-world subversion. But no belief or practice illustrates O9A's extremism more starkly than its doctrine of culling. In O9A literature, culling is described as the ritual killing of a human being, presented as a sacred duty that tests the initiate's courage and loyalty. Far from metaphorical, O9A texts detail how culling should be approached, targeting individuals deemed weak, parasitic, or socially undesirable. Some writings even suggest specific methods of murder, couched in the language of initiation.
So oftentimes it becomes racial, but again, oftentimes it'll be somebody that they work next to, and maybe you're pro-trans, maybe you're too liberal, maybe you're ugly to them. It really it depends on the O9A member, right? You're gonna have it's probably going to be predominantly like white neo-Nazis, right? But then you're also going to have plenty of other ethnicities in there as well, because these Nexions, they're small and they exist independently, and it's pretty much just the core tenets are all that matters. So you can be a black supremacist and be O9A, right? Like, and you actually see a lot of intermingling of the supremacy groups, black supremacy and white supremacy, because they both have the ultimate goal of individual ethnic states. So, they're allies oftentimes. That's something I found out when I was researching ISUPK, is that a lot of times ISUPK would ally with neo-Nazis.
So to outsiders, this doctrine represents the clearest evidence that O9A functions as a cult of violence. Unlike most occult groups, which restrict trans...
And this shit right here, this is actual scary shit, because even though not many people are watching right now, they stay on the outlook for this. So, this is the same thing that, and I said I'd never do it again, and I keep doing it. When I look at groups like these, I know the danger of it, right? Like, it doesn't have to be watched by millions of people. All you have to do is talk about them, and they'll probably find out. The ISUPK did. They found out, and they came at me pretty hard. It's scary. And Order 9 Angles, it's a certain risk to talk about groups like this, because again, like they would have no qualms of finding where I live and coming and killing me and everybody I know, right? So it takes a certain amount of courage to do it. But people have to do it. People have to talk about these groups, because these groups are out there right now, and especially in this time period where it seems like the FBI is more interested in locking up Democratic politicians and streamers than they are actual domestic terrorists. 1 second. Let's continue.
Expression to symbolic ritual, O9A elevated murder into a spiritual sacrament. Though not all members are believed to have carried out culling, the idea itself did normalize violence as a path to enlightenment, creating this dangerous overlap between esotericism and terrorism. Law enforcement agencies would later link O9A inspired individuals to actual killings and terror plots, often citing culling as a motivating factor. Imagine thinking that you need to.
So yeah, like there's been I think 8 or 9 up to this point O9A members that have been arrested for actually committing murders, but there's been a lot of plots, especially like school shooting plots, that authorities were able to stop before, because again, the FBI was looking at these groups. The FBI were actively hunting these groups down, and are they now? Are they still trying to do that? I don't think they are.
Kill somebody to become spiritually enlightened. It's absolutely horrifying. And to think that that ideology could have influenced a group run by teenagers like Group 764.
Yeah, so and that's the thing, like, because the way I keep describing them, it creates this image in your brain of like this old, grizzled, prison Aryan Nation neo-Nazi, and that's not what these people are. There might be a few out there that make it into their 30s, but we're talking about teenagers. We're talking about possibly your teenagers. The internet is a fucking mean place, and I am finding out just more and more. I mean, pretty much since that movie Cuties, like my eyes have been opened to what a fucking foul cesspool the internet actually is. Like there's plenty of people on the internet trying to make the internet a great thing, because it is a great thing. But then there's so many people out there that have manipulated it for really nefarious reasons. And I think we all kind of know that, but once you start learning the actual extent of it, it's fucking terrifying, man.
It's utterly mortifying, because it's this idea that you have to suffer in order to succeed. And I feel like that's kind of, honestly, and this is kind of a little bit of a tangent, I think that ideology has actually kind of subconsciously embedded itself into anyone who lives in a capitalistic society, because there is this idea of we need to suffer in order to be successful. We have to work really, really, really hard in order to get money, success, fame if people want it. As someone who considers themselves an artist who is active in.
So, I mean, and maybe she is left-leaning. She got a lot of shit for this, I think. People telling her not to come out of her world, not to come from her worldview. But I don't think this necessarily makes her a leftist by any means. I think more and more people are waking up to just the cruelties of American capitalism. American capitalism has completely failed. And anybody that would tell you otherwise, they're lying to you. Elon Musk just hit $500 billion. One person. $500 billion. And yet half of this country are living paycheck to paycheck. Capitalism is broken. capitalism has failed every American, and it doesn't take a leftist to see it. Not anymore. Maybe 10 years ago, it would have taken a leftist to really at least say it publicly. Not anymore. Not anymore. Just watch the video of Bernie Sanders going to West Virginia. Just watch that video.
An artistic community, I can tell you that the trope starving artist is true, where I see so many people clinging to this idea that life should be really, really hard for them if they want to succeed. So they won't get a full-time job. They will, if they do, they'll work paycheck to paycheck. There's this lack of feeling of abundance and this lack of prioritizing your financial health in the artistic.
And you know, and she's given the argument, and this is a common theme of anybody that I've seen so far talking about this group, is they live very simple lives. They believe in poverty, or at least lower middle class, right? They don't want to be flashy in their lives. You know, they don't want to be the loud person at work, like me. You know, they don't want any of that flash. They don't want you to know who they are. But that poverty, that struggle, it's essential to kind of drive that hatred, I think. Or at least that apathy.
Space because of this trope of being a starving artist in order to succeed, as if suffering will make you a better performer or artist. It's kind of scary how all of this seems to be kind of subconsciously linked into the way a lot of us live our lives, and it's kind of ironic considering that O9A is very, very anti-society, but they're also kind of like infusing their ideology into it. I don't know. I feel like Homeboy David was really confused. Now let's talk about the ceremonies, because O9A ceremonies themselves are a blend of theatrical Satanism and pagan symbolism. Rituals might involve chanting in esoteric languages, invocations of dark gods, or even the performance of sacrificial rites, like murdering animals or humans, depending on the initiate's stage. Because remember, they have those 7 tiers in order to...
And I think she's probably staying away from this topic. Maybe she'll get into it. I thought she did, but maybe she's staying away from it to protect her channel. But it's not just that. It's, as far as I've come to understand it, it can also be, you know, rape, child rape especially, would do maybe rape and murder. When she's talking about animal sacrifice, you have to understand, like, as far as I understand, sex is involved with that as well. It's about the depravity of the act. The more depraved the act, the more benefit to these dark gods.
Reach true enlightenment. However, the true distinctiveness of O9A rituals isn't that they have the aesthetic and they're chanting in a dark room and doing an animal sacrifice. It's more so in the psychological function of the ideology. Initiates were encouraged to deliberately commit crimes or commit acts that would violate their own ethical boundaries, whether through illegal activities, blasphemy, or actual violence. In this sense, ritual served as a tool of deconditioning, of breaking down conventional morality and reshaping the self according to the sinister way. Within this group's Nexions, they exhibit many of the traits common to cults. There's this secrecy and isolation. Members are encouraged to keep their affiliation with the group hidden and to operate in very small, tight-knit cells. Advancement within the group also requires mastering a body of secret writings that are often only distributed to initiates, and this gives this feeling of
I think that there are some writings that you can find, or at least people have found them. I'm going to try to find some of them myself, because that's usually the best way to understand a cult. And this is cultism like evolved, right? Like in the internet age. This isn't. These are both different kinds of cults than I've ever covered before, and I've covered quite a few of them in my Crazy Cult series. I don't even know, like, I don't even think I can call it, say that I still have a Crazy Cult series, even though I named it Crazy Cults, just because that's what I've always named these, because I've deleted so much shit at this point. I don't know. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. But I've never covered anything like this, because most cults use sex and supernatural religious thought in a very different way than O9A is utilizing it. And the next cult we're going to be looking at, as far as I understand, they do some similar stuff, and it's an offshoot of O9A, but they do it for different reasons. But I've never just, usually the worst of these cults, and I've covered like silly cults like Three Hearts Church, where it's just like, chick, you're stupid, and you have clearly went down way too many rabbit holes in your short time here on this earth, But it's essentially like harmless outside of like she's pulling other people into these rabbit holes that could lead to like far dangerous places than just being a silly woman on YouTube. To cults that literally, like the family, which is like a sex pedophile cult, and that's usually the worst of it. But this is just even beyond any of that. This is chaos for chaos, chaos for chaos's sake. But it's taken that literal Christian Satan and making it so much more than what it is. And this is inherently like one of the fundamental dangers of Christianity, is that this is going to be the result of that. If you introduce this dark god figure, Satan, your anti-Christ figure, then people are going to run with that, right? And I covered Pazuzu Algarad on the channel, who was a Satanist, and ended up murdering, I think it was 3 people, maybe 2 or 3 people, after a slow progression. But this is well beyond that. This is doing the worst deeds because that's what the dark gods demand, and it's a pantheon, right? It's not just Satan. It's not just Satanism. It's a pantheon of dark gods. Again, some of these people think Hitler is one of those gods. So it's just this is beyond anything that I've ever looked into before. But it's the natural progression, I think, when you have a tool like, the online web and just a way to get into practically every home now. Like almost everybody's got a computer now, if not everybody, except for like even most homeless folks have a cell phone now. So it's like they can get to you now way easier than ever before, and the progression of the ideology has definitely taken a sick turn. And when you have people that believe in these supernatural nonsensical things, then it's really a small jump from, a Christian interpretation of Satan, where you have Christians going around saying Satan's the reason the earth is gone bad, and you just need to find Jesus, to like people literally wanting to kill for that, and think that the sicker, the more depraved the act is, the more that this dark being is going to, reward them. Because the ultimate goal is like they think that they're going to be immortal, that they're going to live forever. They're going to become demigods themselves.
Exclusivity. Kind of like that Scientology bridge where once you pay more money to take more courses and do more audits, then and only then are you allowed to know the truth about the foundations and the creation of the cult. And that's when you learn that there's like a giant lizard in the sky. Yeah. O9A also promotes radical commitment. Through insight roles and culling, members prove their loyalty to the group by committing acts of irreversible transgression. I think it's all just so homeboy David can get off on knowing that he's convincing people to harm other people. But what's interesting about the structure of O9A is because unlike charismatic cults that are built around a single figure, O9A's structure is more networked and viral, enabling it to spread without having one centralized organization. This design would later prove crucial to its survival in the digital age. So in the 1980s and 90s, O9A also distinguished itself through open hostility towards mainstream satanic groups. Anton LaVey's Church of Satan and Michael Aquino's Temple of Set were dismissed by O9A as safe and cosmetic forms of Satanism, offering rebellion without real danger. O9A's rhetoric accused these groups of catering to Western individualism, while the order claimed to embody a sinister, amoral path that demanded real risk. And that means we're better than you, other Satanists. This positioning allowed O9A to attract a niche following of extremists who were...
I should have went with one of the other ones, I think. I hit the wrong button. I like her commentary, but I'm not getting the imagery that I thought we would get. This was one of the first ones I'd looked at a couple days ago, so kind of wishing I went with the other ones. I just don't have much time after work to do this. It's the problem with my life now. Like, the shift that I work is kind of... I like it, but it's kind of jacked.
Rebellion of other Satanist groups. So by the 90s, O9A's teachings had spread across Britain and were carried through zines, photocopied pamphlets, and word-of-mouth networks among occultists and far-right extremists. Nexions began to appear in continental Europe and North America, often operating semi-independently while sharing a core set of texts. The decentralized model of this group meant that anyone could declare themselves part of it, provided they adhered to the teachings and killed people. This franchise-like structure made the order really difficult to track, yet it also ensured continuity even when individual Nexions were dissolved. And this is exactly what we see with Group 764 from my previous video. It seemed like even though they caught the guy that started it, there were so many offshoots of it and so many different Discord groups that the FBI still has not been able to just totally squash it completely. So it was during this period.
And that's the hard thing with these ideologies. It's really hard to squash them completely. It's just really hard to do that, especially in today's day and age. Once things are on the internet, people archive that shit. It's going to be really hard to squash this shit, outside of doing, really giving up a lot of freedoms when it comes to the internet, So, like I said, it's a very complex issue. It's an issue Congress has been battling on the edges of it for forever, and they can't even get beyond that. But it's a serious issue, and it's more serious like if you have kids and you're worried about what they're looking at, or if you know anybody that doesn't really have many boundaries. I've never even tried to get on the dark internet or the dark web, whatever the fuck that is. I've never tried. I've never had an inclination, a desire, a curiosity to see that, and I'm sure it's not all terrible. I'm sure there's benefits to it as well, but I've never had that curiosity, but plenty of people do. And it seems like more and more people, especially like the more and more, when people's conditions get hard, right? It's going to be easier and easier to recruit people into these ideologies like this. And it's going to become, like even the next one is just, it's internet cruelty to the extreme. It's terrifying. I really wish there was some more imagery in this one, because she has pretty good commentary. Her commentary is kind of knocking it out for an introduction to the O9A. But other people actually had better imagery, so I might get away from this because we're quite along now, and I definitely want to get into the next one. So yeah, we're gonna do that. This one will have imagery. I know that for a fact because I just watched this one yesterday. This was pretty good. Again, this is long too, so I definitely want to get into this, and this is going to be the one I want to talk about the most today, because O9A is something that I'm going to be going really, really in deep in. I'm going to be going in deep into this as well. But I just, this is a different kind of monster. So these groups, I'm just finding out about these groups. Like the O9A, while I'm just finding out about the O9A, I've known about those types of groups for quite a while. Boogaloo Boys, accelerationist groups. The O9A is just an extension of that, an acceleration of that, if you will. But this, which is an offshoot of the O9A, this is something new. This is something terrifying and dangerous. And I don't know. I think that it's probably fairly easy to do, which is even scarier. I think that there needs to be some kind of government action. I don't know that Trump's the right president or this Republican government the right government to take some kind of action and this was probably going to be very unpopular here on YouTube. I don't know. But I think something must be done about Discord, about any site like that to where you can create these private servers and violent people can conspire violent things. There's got to be some way to fucking flag that. I don't know how we come to that, but we've got to come to that. This is scary shit. Let's get into it. Content warning. This video contains stories and imagery that some viewers may find disturbing. Viewer discretion advised. Some images have been blurred.
There's a strange kind of comfort in the way social media works. Everyone has a name, a profile picture, a handful of followers. Everything feels traceable, manageable. But that sense of control is mostly an illusion. Behind the usernames and the private messages, there's a part of the internet built to keep people out. It doesn't rely on algorithms or exposure. It spreads through private servers, closed groups, and invite-only links passed from one person to the next. And once someone's inside, getting out isn't always simple. Over the last few years, that darkness has started to take shape.
When I found out about this, I asked my daughter if she'd ever been approached by anything like this. And her answer was scary. Now, she had never been approached by anything like this. She's heard mean talk, is how she described it. But nothing like this. But the scary thing is she's heard about this. And I'm like, well, you should have told me. So this wasn't news to her. She's a 15-year-old girl in today's America. This was not news to her.
Investigators are now tracking what they describe as one of the most rapidly growing online threats in the world. A decentralized, ideologically driven network that has already been linked to dozens of victims across multiple countries. According to the FBI, the group coerces vulnerable individuals into producing CSAM, self-mutilation, and extreme violence. And in the most severe cases, victims have been pushed to taking their own lives. This is Group 764. 764 didn't begin as a movement. It began with a teenager. Bradley Cadenhead was 15 when he created the group from his bedroom in Stephenville, Texas. Online, he went by the name Felix, using 764 from his town's zip code. But what that name came to represent would stretch far beyond a single location. His behavior had been escalating for years. At 8, he was already watching adult content. Soon after, it shifted toward violent content, torture videos, gore, anything brutal. And by the time he was 13, he had already been placed on juvenile probation for talking about shooting up a middle school. The next year, he violated the terms and was sent to a juvenile facility. Probation reports showed a steady decline. Cadenhead refused to participate in counseling. He assaulted his mother, he left home without permission, and was eventually hospitalized after ingesting large quantities of Tylenol and cough syrup. Nothing improved. His world got smaller, and when it did, the internet filled in the gaps. He spent most of his time online. Minecraft led him to Discord, and on Discord, he found something else, a server called Cult, spelt CVLT. The group was run by a French user named Rohan and specialized in grooming minors for explicit content. According to internal reports from Discord's security team, this is where Cadenhead learned to manipulate children. He said another user introduced him to gore, and from there, everything escalated. He took what he had learned and started building a new server. The name was 764. Using variations of the name Felix, he dropped into chat rooms daily, spreading links, posting explicit images, and urging people to join him in more private spaces. When he was banned, he created new accounts. When users pushed back, he threatened them. He bragged about being device banned from nearly every email service. He said he'd gone through over 400 Felix accounts, 100 more just to get back on Discord. Even Roblox had banned him, twice. In one case, he encouraged attention.
Yeah, I mean, it's, we live in a society where both parents usually have to work now. It's funny, like, Republicans and Christians will talk about, like, American values or whatever, and the broken family unit. But it is those Republicans and Democrats as well that have promoted this oligarchical system that we've allowed our capitalism to take us into. That both parents pretty much have to work. If you can stay at home as a mom, in today's society, you're pretty well off, or you're gonna struggle hardcore. And that's only getting worse. It's not getting better. And Christians and Republicans will say it's video games, it's secular society. But in reality, it's just people don't have enough. Both parents are working, and kids have access to technology that we just didn't have access to. And you think that you can stop them, but you can't. You really can't in today's day and age. Like, this is an argument I would get in with my brother when I lived with my brother, and he'd tell me, like, you got to take away her phone. And I'm like, I can't take away her phone. My daughter's a specific case. She's diabetic. She has to have her phone. That's how we read her blood. The monitor speaks to her phone. But just outside of that, it's you might be able to take it away, and then their friend will give them one. That was something that happened with my kid when she was like 12. A parent took her friend's phone away, so she went and got them new phones with her allowance, and then kept those phones in her bag. Just like burner phones. So it was like, You know, in today's day and age, you're not going to keep them from it. Now, I think the real question is, why did he have a desire for it? His dad seems to have been, from what I know of the guy so far, I'm definitely going to be delving deeper into this as well, especially this particular kid, because even though they did catch him and he's gone, this thing is not, it was never designed to be a him thing. You know, it maybe at first. And it's evolving in very, very, very dangerous ways. And it's terrifying. You know, it's terrifying. Kids have access to, you know, I try to describe it as people like when we were growing up, my generation was growing up, Generation X, you know, we had to wait till probably Friday unless you know had a satellite dish. You know what I'm talking about. But we had to, you know, wait till Friday or Saturday, and if you were lucky enough to have Cinemax, then Friday or Saturday was Skinemax, and you could go down and see some titties, right? And that was pretty much, you know, that and magazines, Playboys, Hustlers. That was your exposure to adult themed content back then, right? Like most of I guess you could say our cartoons were adult themed, and a lot of them were kind of centered around war and destruction and death and murder, but they were all like kid themed, Bugs Bunny and shit, you know, Silverhawks, Thundercats, the Smurfs. But I mean, if you really think about the underlying things on any of those, they're adult themed. But nowadays you have just endless access, and that's what the movies Cuties showed me was, man, like you think that you know what your kid's watching on the internet, but unless you're sitting there 24/7, you have no fucking idea. And they have access to everything, and they're seeing pretty much what you're seeing, you know. Yeah, I mean they're seeing the adult world. There's not much of a kid world anymore, and that's the age of the internet. That's what we live in. You know, we try to make ourselves feel better by having a kids network or a YouTube Kids, or, you know, Netflix will have their kids version. As soon as you're gone, they ain't watching that shit. Not anymore. And that's the reality of the world we live in today.
Year-old girl to send inappropriate photos of herself. In another, he told someone who had just...
Taboo, I think, is the right word, but also he had to have these... they had to be fantasies that he had in his brain that he wanted to see in real life. You know, this kid had to be pretty twisted from a very young age.
Survived taking their own life to try again.
And what happened to make it that
When other
way?
users
I
warned
think
him
that's
to
the
stop,
question
he laughed.
that we've never really been
He
able
bragged
to answer.
constantly, said his extortions were wild. Other users called him a god, Felix the CP god. One 14-year-old girl from Oklahoma said she was blackmailed by him into cutting herself on camera, even going so far as making...
I'll be right back. I'm going to go grab another soda, and hopefully I'm going to keep my earbuds in so I can hear it. But I shouldn't get too far away, but hopefully it doesn't fuck up the stream. I'll be right back.
her mutilate her pet hamster. What began as a replica of cult quickly turned into something more, something ideological. The group borrowed heavily from an older extremist network called the Order of Nine Angles, or O9A. It's a violent organization that merges Satanism, neo-Nazism, and occultism. Members are told to reject empathy, to see morality as weakness. They glorify ritual violence, and they promote a concept called culling, the idea that real power comes from harming others without hesitation. Cadenhead treated O9A like a blueprint. 764 built its identity around the belief that systems should fall. It wasn't created to gain influence or money. It was created to cause harm. The FBI and Department of Justice say the group's goal is to destabilize society by targeting the most vulnerable people they can find. That often means children, but it isn't limited to them.
I think I got like 1 foot too far away.
Their targets are chosen based on access. If someone can be broken, they're useful. Maybe the most unsettling part is that 764 is only one part of it. Surrounding the group is a larger network of subgroups, aliases, and temporary servers. Slittown, Leak Society, Harm Nation, 303, 555, 404, Hell, and No Lives Matter, to name a few. In these spaces,
and that's the scary thing. That's what's gonna make like this thing really hard. And again, like the FBI's looking at Democrats. The FBI's looking at George Soros. Are they still? Are they even trying to find like this shit anymore? You know, I don't know. Maybe they are. I don't know. But that's what's gonna make it hard, because as soon as you get the guy that does 764, well now you've got all these other fucking nihilist internet brained kids out there that, you know, and that's the thing, like when people are blaming like Tyler Robinson, oh he's left wing, or you know, and we do it too, no he's right wing, like there's this whole new thing that's not left or right wing anymore. It's just kids that hate. It's this nihilism that's like spreading through this young generation that's frightening. It's frightening once you know about it. You know, like I think it's too easy, like, you know, like in my family, like my brother, his kids, they're like perfect kids. You know, you see those kids and you're like, man, this young generation, man, they got it, you know, they got it figured out, man. They're doing it better than we did, you know. And most of the kids this generation are probably that. But then you've got this internet thing now, and these Discord servers now, and these Roblox now, and really good kids can become really fucked up kids really, really fast. Really, really fast. Parenting is harder now than it's ever been. And I'm just now really coming to that realization. And when you come to that realization as a parent, you realize you have failed your children. You just have. There's no way to avoid it now. Once you understand enough. Like there's no way to protect them anymore. Fuck, we're not safe. We're not safe. It's all an illusion. They're not safe. We're not safe. And once you know it, it's terrifying. And these groups, they're out there and they're real. And we ain't even got to the shit that they do, man. It's fucking terrible. You know, like, I think we all remember the case of the girl that convinced her suicidal boyfriend to commit suicide, right? I remember that case. I think they made a few documentaries out of it. That nihilism is spreading. And it's spreading fast.
Ideology is less about belief and more about permission. Some users invoke 09A references without knowing where they come from. Others wear them proudly. But the overlap is always there. Nazi symbolism, praise for mass shooters, sadistic memes, screen grabs of abuse passed around like trophies. The most violent content earns the most respect, and the more disturbing the video, the higher the status. FBI investigators have called these users nihilistic violent extremists, not because they're chasing a cause, but because they're not chasing anything at all. For them, the end goal is total destruction. Most coverage focuses on the abuse, but inside these groups, it's also a system of recruitment. Young people are pulled in, pushed past boundaries, and reshaped until they either disappear or become part of it. Most of the time, it starts the same way. It usually begins in spaces built around pain, Discord servers centered on self-harm, forums where depression is openly discussed but rarely moderated, group chats where no one's really paying attention. These are the environments the group moves through, watching silently until someone says the right thing. A member reaches out, often appearing calm and supportive. They might pose as another teenager, or speak like someone who understands, but it was never about helping in the first place. Most of their activity happens on Discord and Telegram, though other platforms have been used at different points. Instagram,
Yeah, SPM, it's scary. Like, I let my kid play Roblox for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. I knew I had to be conscious and aware, like, I played WoW. I know how it is, but, I don't know. I was just kind of naive to it, though, at the same time. And now, like, it's, especially Roblox has really blown up. As far as I understand it, like, they're being forced to change their whole business model and the way they do things. You just don't want to think, like, deep down people are capable of this, right? Like, you know about the Hitlers of the world, right? But you want to think that that's an anomaly, that's not, like, normal or normal in any kind of way, right? Like, you want to think that the serial killers of the world are a rare breed. And then once you start to find out, like, it's being normalized, not only normalized, but exploited. And that your kids are probably targeted. If they haven't been targeted yet, there's a good chance that they could be. Again, like they just said, like, they'll hang out in these places to where they might even be, like, safe places, Discord servers where it's free conversation, and it's great conversation, and the moderators are good, and the server runs exactly like it should, but they're just waiting for that one comment from that one person that's going to be the sign. And I think that they'll kind of get into it a little bit, and I definitely want to get into all of this a lot more. I think this is something that people need to be aware of. And I don't care if, like, it's not going to get me, which I don't get many views anymore anyway. I'm going to slowly be rebuilding this thing. But I've never cared about views. This is what we should know about. That's what I care about. And often the things that we should know about are the things that are going to make us the most uncomfortable. And this, for me as a father, makes me very uncomfortable. And I'm kind of glad that I'm almost done with that now. Like, I'm not going to have another kid in my life, and mine's 15 now. We're almost past, like, where I'm going to have to worry about this type of thing, hopefully. But all the parents out there, all the kids that are going to be growing up into this is only going to, unless we figure this out, this is only going to get worse and worse and worse.
Blocks, Minecraft, even SoundCloud. Most of the victims are between the ages of 9 and 17. Many are already struggling with mental health, with identity, or just with being alone. And the goal is always the same. Find someone vulnerable, cut them off, and make them believe they've finally found somewhere they belong. From there, it moves quickly. They shift to private servers.
And I know, like, I've never wanted to be like the Nazi parent that told my kid she couldn't do anything. I've always tried to find this equal balance of her privacy versus my need as a parent to know. But, like, you watch shit like this, and it's like, it's almost like, and I think that there's actual science that overprotective is not good as well. But it's almost like you have to be on it 24/7, and in this society, that's impossible. It's just impossible unless you're gonna break certain ethical standards and just literally spy on your kids, like put programs in there that's going to show you everything they fucking do. Like, that's the only way that you can, but then you got to spend all your free time going through it, and it's just not really logistically possible.
Voice calls and screen share sessions. Victims are told to follow instructions, sometimes framing it as a game, other times as a challenge. Occasionally, that first task crosses a boundary, but once it's done, that's where it starts. They ask for proof, photos or videos, something that can be saved. And once they have it, the tone changes. The messages get sharper. The victim is told that if they don't continue, their secrets will be shared, their family will be contacted, their lives will be ruined. It becomes a trap, and the only way out, they're told, is to keep going. At this point, the requests turn into demands. Victims are made to film themselves cutting into their own skin. They're told to carve usernames or group names into their bodies. These are called cut signs, a kind of brand that shows who they belong to. Others are told to hurt animals, to involve siblings, to create material that escalates with every video. And it's all recorded. Some members will even live stream the abuse. Others host what they call watch parties, where victims are tormented in front of an audience. The footage is saved, archived.
Like, I've never had the desire to sit here at my computer and watch somebody get tortured. Or to watch somebody kill a cat. Or to cut themselves. Like, what the fuck is happening to the human race? And there's always been that element of cruelty when we were young. Like, I remember being young. You know, I remember it. And I remember, like, there's always that element of cruelty. But now this just seems way beyond that.
And traded. And the more violent it is, the more status the abuser earns, almost like a badge of honor. The victims are left traumatized. Some never come forward. Others try, but by then it's too late. The group already has their information, their faces, their voices, even their school names. And even when the servers get shut down, the files don't disappear. They're stored, reshared, and sometimes reused to lure in someone else. For some, the damage ends there, but others stay, pulled deeper into the group, until they're no longer just victims. Investigators say many of the most active members started as victims themselves, brought in young, manipulated and broken down, and then built back up again as part of the system. They stay because they're scared, or because it's the only place where they feel accepted. But over time, they become recruiters, becoming the thing they once feared. And that's what makes this group so hard to stop. It regenerates. Since 2021, criminal cases have been opened in the US, UK, Germany, Romania, and Brazil. Some of the worst content has been linked back to a core set of users. One of them, known online as Gore Butcher, ran an invite-only channel tied directly to Order of Nine Angles. He's believed to be a Florida man named Angel Almeida, a dropout with a long arrest record and a history of violence. He's not the only one. Some members write instructions.
I'm sure we'll be talking about Angel Almeida again as we get deeper into this group. I'm pretty sure he's one of the people that's actually like committed murder. I think he committed murder, but I think he did it maybe for Order of Nine Angles.
Literal guides on how to groom and exploit, telling others what kind of girls to target, what to say, when to push, and when to escalate. These documents are shared inside the group, alongside folders of abuse, cut sign compilations, and violent memes. Platforms say they're working on it. Discord claims they shut down 130 groups and banned over 34,000 users tied to the network in a single year. Roblox says it monitors 764-themed skins and removes references when flagged. Instagram and Telegram both say the same, but even now, hundreds of 764-related accounts are still active. The group simply moves faster. Some have spent years being manipulated. Others were pulled in and discarded almost immediately. But all of them were changed by it. And the stories that have surfaced since, both the ones that were recovered or told by the people left behind, show just how far this really goes.
I mean, this is just, I don't know, it's beyond anything I ever imagined, right? Like, even after my eyes were opened with the movie Cuties, like, it's, like, I knew internet was bad, but, like, I don't know, my brain had focused it to, like, 4chan, 8chan bullshit, you know, conspiracy rabbit holes and you know, your conventional hate groups and hate crimes. But this just seems an evolution of that, right? Like, this just, I don't know, like, for a good chunk of my life, I tried to write books, and I tried to write really bad people. And none of the people that I ever wrote that were supposed to be really bad people compared to anything like this. Nothing like this. Like, just my brain doesn't want to go to these kinds of places.
The people behind these groups aren't all the same, but what connects them isn't where they started, it's what they choose to do once they get inside. Some of them used threats, others forced their victims to hurt themselves, but in certain groups, the abuse focuses on animals, and in one of the most widely shared cases, it was a girl known online as Holy Girl 222. She had been active in several servers linked to Kaskar, one of the groups that branched off from 764. Members knew her name, they knew her voice, and eventually, they knew what she was willing to do. In one photo, she's holding a handwritten fan sign with the name Court 764. In her other hand is the body of her cat, the one she had just been forced to kill. The name belonged to Joseph Schoonover, known online as Courtbox. Back in 2018, he was just another anonymous kid on the internet. He spent most of his time making stick figure animations on a site called Flippernim, where he was bullied constantly. And when that didn't stop, he started looking for a way to make people take him seriously. That's when he decided to join 764. He joined the group, copied its methods, and then built something of his own. A spin-off called Kaskar. The purpose was the same: coercion, humiliation, and control. As a result, he would be doxxed. With that came information about who Joseph was, old accounts, and old photos. The only images that ever surfaced showed him as a child, maybe 5 or 6 years old. The docs also confirmed his family members. His sister had been arrested, reportedly for punching a teacher, and when his mother died, her obituary page was found and flooded with images of the girl he had coerced, the one holding up a sign with his name and her deceased cat. Holy Girl 222 would also eventually be doxxed and swatted. People in the group said she wanted it, that she did it for attention, but Discord logs show that it wasn't her choice. She had been forced. Another case tied to the network involved a user known as Harm. His real name was Abdallah Ali. He was based in Egypt and had been active across multiple servers connected to 764. He regularly posted images of...
See, and that's the scary thing about the internet. And again, like it's a thought that's probably there, but you just don't process it because you don't want to think about it. But we live in a world where you don't have to just worry about the predator next door, or, you know, the touchy-feely uncle that you're not sure if you should let your kids around. You know, we live in a world now to where every predator in the world has access to your kids. All over the world. They have access to your kids. They can reach your kids in your home. It's fucking terrifying, man.
Animal abuse, sometimes involving animals he harmed, sometimes showing victims who had been made to do it for him. In one of the most well-known videos linked to his account, a girl is seen on a Discord call killing her cat on camera. The audio is muted, but throughout the recording, a voice labeled Harm is seen speaking. The images and videos, like so many others, became part of the archive. Most of the victims were forced, but not all of the violence was.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the 80s a little bit. I was grade school. But yeah, we grew up in a different kind of chaos, I think. You know, at least, you know, I grew up in Davie County, North Carolina, man. It was all just rebelling against our parents' Southern Baptist bullshit and doing drugs, you know, and that kind of led to some crimes. Like, this is a whole new level, man. Again, like, you know, it's just be aware of what your kids are doing. You know, that's the main takeaway. But then the other main takeaway of all of this, you know, I should have the clips, you know, like I need to get back to the stage to where I can clip shit again. You know, maybe I should really try to figure out one of these free ones until I can afford to get the stuff I'm used to. But, you know, I should have the clip of Trump saying that his extremists just care about crime. You know, the entire context of all of this is the FBI actually, do they care about this? Oh, and thank you for the subscription, Tara Jackson. Like, does this FBI, does this government, who think that their extremists only care about crime, which is just dementia-addled bullshit, is that FBI, is that government, are they still looking at this? Are they still worried about this? Are they still worried about Order of Nine Angles? Are they still worried about Oath Keepers and Boogaloo Boys and Proud Boys? Because it seems like they're probably hiring them for ICE. And, you know, this group in particular, I think, really speaks to me because of all the recent, what I would call, like, meme boy shootings. You know, shootings that they're trying to put on the left wing, and maybe it is left wing, maybe not, but it's definitely seemed to have internet meme culture as a common theme. Somebody's knocking again, so let me turn off my camera and we'll continue.
Nino Luciano was born on July 4th, 2004, in Germany. His parents were addicts. His father was in prison, and from the moment he was born, he was in withdrawal. By the time he was 6, he was sleeping with a knife under his pillow. He had violent outbursts, and his mother described his childhood as unstable, filled with psychiatric placements and temporary housing. In 2011, he was admitted to a clinic for the first time. From there, he was transferred to a residential care group, and eventually, the decision was made to send him out of the country. During that time, he was medicated daily. He said the drugs made him feel numb, like he was on another planet. The German state covered the full cost of his placement, more than €400 per day, which included therapy, psychiatric consultations, clothing allowances, and pocket money. By the time he turned 18, the total had reached nearly €900,000. The support stopped the day he became an adult. 10 months later, he murdered someone. On the morning of April 12th, 2022, Nino was seen slashing the tire of a parked car in the town of Mediasch. He wandered the streets for hours. At one point, he offered a one-lei note to an elderly man, then turned and followed him. The man became uncomfortable and ran, and so Nino moved on. 2 hours later, he found someone else. On Pultenisch Street, a 74-year-old woman was taking out her trash. Nino approached her and said hi. Then he knocked her to the ground, kicked her repeatedly, and cut her throat. He streamed the entire attack over Discord. The killing was meant to prove something. He believed it would get him into a group called MKY, short for Maniac Murder Cult, a Romania-based offshoot connected to 764. He had
I don't get how MKY stands for Maniac Murder Cult, but, you know, none of this shit makes sense to me. It's insane. And this is a worldwide thing, man. You know, this isn't the degradation of American culture. This is the world is going to shit. Like our young generation is struggling. They're not understanding this world that we're handing them. And man, it seems like it's a fucking problem.
Also been active in other cells, including one called 6996 and a smaller group known as Necrohunt. She was neither Roma nor Jewish, but Nino later claimed he believed she was, that the killing had been racially motivated.
Yeah, it's all about the acceleration of end of society. And, you know, this is an offshoot of 09A, and 09A is ultimately, the ideology is, you know, destroy society so the dark gods, the dark avatars of chaos and destruction, can create a new aeon of for themselves. And then, if you make it to that final degradation, if you make it to that ninth angle, you achieve immortality. You yourself become a demigod of this chaos, and you will become a part of that new aeon. It's like, it's fucking crazy, but it's crazy in a dangerous way, because this is a sickness on the internet right now. and all of our children have access to this internet, and I don't really think that there's really any adequate parental controls on the internet. And again, I'm a person, I've never even tried to, I wouldn't even know how to get on the dark web, whatever the fuck that is. This is the dark side of the internet. Like, I've never wanted to be on a Discord call so I can watch somebody murder somebody. Like, this is a different level of shit. Yeah, acceleration, and it is. I can see it. The way to accelerate the downfall of society is to implement terror. But I don't think that we can be afraid of this. We have to face it. I think that's one of the things that's really great about the human race, is we refuse to be defeated, and I don't really think any task is too great for us. It's just our individuals are fucked. We're fucked on an individual basis.
Later that night.
But I think it's how I've been able to stay an optimistic humanist, and it's really hard, especially in these more modern times of my life. But I'm still that optimist humanist. I think all these bad actors in the country right now are gonna be found, and they're gonna be caught. Now this is a different element. I'm talking more like government. Like, all these people are gonna have their day. They're gonna have to face their crimes. This is a different monster. I don't even know how you go about, like, you can take out the individual servers, and you can even find out who they are and lock them away. But I don't know how you stop this unless we just fundamentally change the internet. And I think it's a conversation we've got to start having. And it's a conversation I've been willing to broach since I watched the movie Cuties, because that shit just opened my fucking eyes. Like, but that was more on the sexual nature of the adult world that kids are being exposed to on the internet. This is something even far beyond that. This is the nihilistic depravity, exalting in the nihilistic depravity of the internet, that I think we have to stop. It has to stop.
He posted about the murder in a Telegram chat. He was arrested the next day and charged with aggravated murder, attempted murder, destruction, and possession of CSAM. In August, he pled guilty and was sentenced to 14 years in prison under an educational measure focused on rehabilitation. The court ordered that he remain under psychiatric treatment for as long as necessary. In a similar fashion, a 14-year-old boy began attacking strangers at night. Over the course of a few months, he stabbed 8 individuals in Hässelby, Sweden, recorded it, and posted it on Telegram to gain more status and promote the Swedish branch of No Lives Matter, which he ran. His victims were mostly elderly. His username...
and that's just, so... and I understand, Black Lives Matter, there was incidents where things got taken out of control. The actual movement, or the organization itself, was fundamentally flawed at the top, right? I understand all of that, but the movement, Black Lives Matter, was never like your life doesn't matter. It was our lives matter too. And the thing about like Blue Lives Matter or All Lives Matter is like we always understood the racial element of that protest to our protest, right? But this is even to the greater extension of that when you go to No Lives Matter. That the name says it all there, to where, and that's why I think, you know, if the Minnesota shooter, and by now, like, I don't even think the Trump administration gives a fuck to know the truth about the Minnesota shooter. But you know, if the Minnesota shooter wasn't directly linked to Order of Nine Angles, it was one of these offshoot groups of the Order of Nine Angles, right? And maybe not 764. This is more of an internet mutilation, torture type deal. But one of those accelerationist groups, like the Order of Nine Angle, to where the whole point is no lives matter, right? It's just that acceleration to the downfall of society, to where either they, you know, because again, I don't think every member subscribes to the supernatural mumbo jumbo of the ideology of itself, where they and their ethnic race can thrive in the new aeon, whatever you want to call it, or whether it be so just like everybody fucking dies and Satan and Hitler and all the other gods, dark gods on this dark pantheon can thrive. It is fucking mind-boggling to think that this is a real thing that we have to be worried about, but we have to be worried about it, and I don't think our government is right now. I mean, maybe they are. Maybe they're still looking at this too, but it's kind of hard to think that they're looking at this too when they fired most of the FBI. Nobody really knows what the fuck the CIA is doing nowadays. Probably, or I'm not going to say that. I'll probably go to jail. You know, like, are they looking at this? Are they looking at this? I don't think that they are. I really, my mic is popping. I've been trying to fuck with my volume to get it back to good. Because since I came back, like I seem to have forgotten how to work audio, and man, my mic is popping, so I don't have it right now.
Was slain 764. He would eventually be caught and charged. Solna District Court ruled that the boy was guilty of attempted murder after a hearing, but since he was under 15 years old, he couldn't be convicted of the crime, and simply had to pay damages of over 250,000 kroner, or just over $26,000, to the man. Another name that kept coming up was Vincent Collison. He called himself Yuki. He was 18 and a member of Kaskar. Yuki was one of the most active extortionists linked to the network. He moved across platforms like Discord, Instagram, and Roblox, and targeted minors through private messages and server invites. Once contact was made, he pushed for more. Yuki and the people around him are believed to be responsible for at least 2 suicides. One of his victims was pregnant. He threw a brick through her window, and the sudden shock caused her to go into cardiac arrest, killing both her and her baby. Yuki also ran a service called Brick Squad, a pay-to-order operation where people could pay him to target someone in real life. The options included Molotovs, drive-bys, and home invasions. His team would show up, film the damage, and send it back to the person who paid. While some found violence in performance, others found it in silence. Her username was FMLK. She was 15, and as a result, her real identity is unknown. She was active in several 764 servers, fluent in English, and already trusted enough to move between chats that most people never saw. And that's how she found him. His name was Samuel Hervey. He was 25 and...
This shit is so fucked up, man. And it's like, you know, we're just kind of finding out about this shit, right? Like, I mean, I'm sure the FBI and the government's been onto it for a while. But people are just really starting to talk about this type of shit. And it's really scary to think just how many people this has affected, possibly. You know, like, you always hear about the plague of people disappearing, right? And you always, like, the narrative up until now, I think, has always been, well, that just means it's like human trafficking is worse than we ever imagined it being, right? And sure, human trafficking is a problem. I'm not saying it's not. I'm not trying to take away from that problem at all. I'm just saying is, like, maybe some of those disappearances wasn't what we attribute them to be. There's a lot of really fucked up people operating in this world right now. And man, this shit is this shit right here is fucked up.
Grew up in International Falls, Minnesota. He studied biochemistry and began transitioning after turning 18. But after the pandemic hit, everything fell apart. He dropped out of university, his marriage ended, and he stopped taking his medication. In late 2020, he was committed to a psychiatric hospital and diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder. A few months after being released, he left the country. He ended up in Kyrgyzstan, moving between hostels in Bishkek. In early November, he created a Discord server. He called it an hero tempest, an infamous online term used to reference taking one's own life. The messages made his plans clear. He talked about what he was going to do.
Yeah, and that's another thing, right? Like, just anybody can make a server nowadays, man. And like, you know, when we have a discussion on guns, it's mental health, it's guns. It's like we've got to stop letting, at least, you know, the bare minimum we could do trying to, like, you know, compromise with Republicans is like the least we can do is make it really, really, really hard for people that have really severe mental problems to get a gun. All right. But like it goes beyond that. Like we've got to really consider like allowing some people to start these fucking servers, man. You know, like, I don't know, it's, again, all of this is tied around really complex issues of privacy and freedom. But we live in a world where more and more people are just bad actors. And it, like, if you have like a really serious mental thing going on, maybe you shouldn't have a server. Now, this guy's the victim. Again, a lot of these people are looking for people with mental health issues. So, like, you know, I don't know. It's just like maybe the conversation goes beyond guns, and it's like we just really need to help people with mental health issues. We just really need to help people like that, and give them access to help, give them insurance, and you know, maybe a universal healthcare system to where all people are going to have access to mental health services. But this story's fucked up.
And how it would happen. Most users ignored him, and a few tried to talk him down. But FMLK didn't. She reached out and moved the conversation into private call.
So essentially, because I stopped it and started talking, like, dude made a server because he was suicidal. And, you know, most people do the compassionate thing, you know, and again, this goes to that one famous case of the girlfriend that talked her boyfriend who was suicidal into killing himself. But, you know, again, they're hanging out. They're looking for servers like this, and, you know, they're gonna tell you, no, man, you should probably do it. And that's what this person does, and they use the method. You know, they're gonna. It's just fucked up.
She asked for updates and told him people would be watching. That this was his chance to be remembered.
I hate this.
Samuel's messages shifted between panic and calm. One night, he said he couldn't stop crying. The next day, he said he'd bought the gasoline. On November 7th, he left his hostel and took a bus to Rescue Mountain, an ancient pilgrimage site on a mountain just south of Bishkek.
I don't know, Puff. Like, they were going after them pretty good. They were getting them. It's just the ideology moves faster than the feds. So you're never going to stop it. But you know, my question is, are they even looking? Are they trying at all anymore? Because they were trying. Now I don't think they are. I don't think we have the manpower for it. And they're looking at Democrats. They're looking at people like, you know, Adam Schiff and George Soros. They're not looking at these people anymore. I mean, that's what I get from them. Maybe I'm wrong.
Called Tashtar Ata. He found a spot in the snow, set up his phone, and lit himself on fire. The entire ordeal played.
let's go back a little bit. I stopped it. Like, this is horrible. It's horrible. It's fucking horrible. I stopped it too much. Let's just listen to it.
Didn't. She reached out and moved the conversation into private calls. She asked for updates and told him people would be watching, that this was his chance to be remembered. Samuel's messages shifted between panic and calm. One night, he said he couldn't stop crying. The next day, he said he'd bought the gasoline. On November 7th, he left his hostel and took a bus to Rescue Mountain, an ancient pilgrimage site on a mountain just south of Bishkek called Tashtar Ata. He found a spot in the snow, set up his phone, and lit himself on fire. The entire ordeal played out live on a Discord call. At least 29 users were in the server while it happened, as he was propping up his phone, sitting on the ground, praying, then dousing himself. Some were recording, others were cheering. In one clip, someone shouts out the group. Another calls her by name.
Hey, shout out to Discord people. Shout out to fucking Xanax. Shout out to fucking 764.
Shout out to everyone fucking. Big shout out to Money and big shout out to FMLK. And we gotta say, it took you so fucking long. 6323 is better than 764.
That's the worst death possible, man.
After Samuel's death, she took control of the
That's the worst part of this doc here, is to hear them just enjoying it, shouting out 764, FLMK. Man, that's the worst death possible, man. And they you know, and that's, they would get props because of that, because that's the worst death possible. That's, you know, I don't know what happened to this person. Maybe she'll tell us. Maybe they'll tell us. But fuck, man, that's legend with these people forever. That's immortality. You know, that's immortality. That's so disturbing. Again, you know, I've been kind of dipping my toes in this for a few days. I've listened. I listened to this most of the day at work today. I did turn it off for a while because I couldn't listen no more. Just to know that this is a thing, it just bothers me so much. It's like, are we ever going to get better as a species, do you think? I mean, in some ways we do. You know, every generation, in some ways we get better, and then every generation, in a lot of ways, we get so much worse. We're just so cruel to each other. This bothers me so much.
Server. He had made her an administrator the night before. That gave her full access, and she used it. A few months later, someone told her about a girl in another server. She had been posting about taking her own life. The girl was young, still a teenager, and so FMLK reached out. She brought the conversation into her own space, the same server Samuel had created. Just like before, she pushed the girl toward it. 15 people watched the stream. She put a plastic bag over her head and filled it with helium. FMLK stayed on the call until it ended. Another incident involved Caleb Merritt. He was 21 years old, living in Texas, and a member of Cult, one of the earlier groups connected to 764. He had already been active across Discord and Instagram when he found her. She was just 12 years old. The first messages were sent through Instagram. Then he moved the conversation to Discord, where he invited her into a private chat room. From there, things escalated. He told her to carve his name into her skin, told her to keep cutting, and asked her to send proof. She did what he asked, not because she understood what was happening, but because he made her believe it was love. In February 2021, Merritt drove from Texas to Virginia. He set up camp in the woods behind her house. A few days later, he told her to meet him. She left without telling anyone. They were found the next day in Henderson, North Carolina. An Amber Alert had been issued. When officers found her, she told them she had run away because she loved him. that they were going to start a life together. She didn't understand what had been done to her. Merritt was arrested and later indicted on multiple charges: assault of a child under the age of 13, abduction with intent to defile, the production of CSAM, and solicitation of a minor. He was convicted and sentenced to 350 years in prison.
And that dude just looks evil. 12 years old, man. I mean, this is the world we live in. You know, I look at bad shit. I look at bad groups. You know, I did Westboro Baptist Church, ISUPK, NIFB. I'm sure there's some other ones I've looked at. I mean, all the cults I looked at on Crazy Cults. Like, I've never seen anything like this. Right? Like, I've covered, you know, right-wing extremist groups. That's why, like, you know, I sniffed it out of William, the things that William was saying, William Freeman was saying. Like, I saw it immediately. You know, I saw it immediately. Like, and William is who William is. You know, he believes what he believes. But I sniffed out his extremism. Because I've dealt with those groups, but this is a whole different level, man. This is like, it bothers me, it disturbs me on a level that I can't even, like, describe with words. I've been in prison. I've known people that's killed people, and I've seen the humanity in those people. Right, like I've seen that their desire for redemption, their great pain at what they had done. I've seen the other side of that. I've seen people that didn't have any regret at all. I've seen people that went crazy from murder and death. But again, you want to think that people that thrive in murder and death are a rarity, and that's why, like, in order, you know, to train a soldier, you have to break them first and build them into something else. And that's, you know, like, the common theme of both of these groups today is that they want to break you down so they can either mold you into something else or discard you. So Damien and Equals in the West. Oh, the vampire cult. Yeah, I so again, yeah, that's the new thing. Like, when I kind of started looking at this again, and I typed in the keywords that I usually type in to pull up information on cults. Man, are there like a whole bunch of new cults out there right now? I found that out. I found that out, and that's one of the ones that I've seen, and I am planning on definitely looking at them as well. But I definitely want to get back to, like, a more researched approach to crazy cults if I'm going to get back into it. But again, like, I just don't have much time anymore. Like, I'm working like normal hours again, you know, so I don't, like, YouTube time is YouTube time is limited, and research time is even more limited. You know, I don't have the time that I used to have to where I could just research shit. Although, like, I could definitely go about it a different way. Instead of, like, I could actually do research instead of watching videos. And I think I might do a couple streams of that, like, just like research streams, like, if anybody wants to hang out while I'm researching shit. Because I really want to do deep dives into these groups, because this is serious shit. And, you know, if there's been an elevation, if there's been an evolution of domestic terrorism in the United States, we need to be aware of it, and we need to keep being aware of it, because if there has been this evolution, then there probably will be more evolutions of it. Again, like, and just this stream alone is a pretty good example of that, right? Like, so this group, the 764, is an evolution, if you will, of Order of Nine Angles. And an evolution of it here in these modern internet times. And Order of Nine Angles have done their own evolving in these modern internet times. In fact, all of extreme ideology has, to be perfectly frank and honest. And that's what, that's why, we're in such a bad, because we have a president right now, literally trying to take away rights granted us in the Constitution through amendment to the Constitution. And this is a conversation we need to have in the most good faith way that the world can have it, right? How are we going to invade the privacy in the right way, right? And that's an impossible thing with the human race. You get into those slippery slope fallacies, and it's just it seems to be an impossible thing, but it's a thing that we're gonna have to do because we've got a thing called the internet, and it's out of fucking control. So we've got to do the fucking impossible, and I actually am optimistic that we can do the impossible. But we're gonna have to sacrifice some of that internet freedom. We're gonna have to.
For investigators, it showed just how far the manipulation could go, the kind that convinces someone to leave everything behind because they think it's what they want. But what's been uncovered so far isn't the whole picture. These stories are only a fraction of what the COM has already done, and what it's still doing. Inside the group's chats, members traded images of young children posed in front of swastika flags, with some being as young as 5 or 6. In one chat, a boy offered photos of his younger sister. The buyer told...
See, and that's also a thing, the swastika thing, that could be an ideology thing, or that could be an internet meme edgelord thing, right? And that's why, knowing the dog whistles is so important. I used to have a fairly good grasp on the dog whistles back in the day. Not even back in the internet, my YouTube days as a raging atheist, but even before that, I had a pretty good grasp on that. I don't pretend to anymore. It's just evolved so much through the years. I don't even know how we begin to try as a society to understand modern meme culture, modern internet culture, our own children that's growing up in it. It's a fucking struggle, man. And you just never really know where it's going to strike. My kid's high school seems to be this cesspool of toxic bullshit that just, high school is always hard for every generation. And those years are always hard for pretty much every teenager. But I don't know. It seems different. Maybe it's just this town. I don't know, but it seems different. And I don't really know as a parent what to make of it. And I have to believe none of us really do, man, because this is all brand new shit, right? Humanity's never dealt with this shit before, ever. In fact, humanity's history is not letting people read, right? Only the wealthy and the powerful could read. Information was never something that we just shared openly as a species before, and definitely not on this level. Not on this level, and not of this magnitude, and not with the capabilities of endless capabilities, right? I was watching, I think it was Hasanabi I can't remember who was watching it. Maybe it was Kyle Kalinske, but these deep fake videos of Tupac and Biggie and Kobe Bryant down in Mexico. It was fucking just we can pretty much fucking do anything with anything. People are having conversations if it's not real children, is it really a crime, right? And man, this world we live in is fucking crazy. Like, to me, it is a crime. It's a crime. I don't care your justification. I don't care if it's AI generated. I don't care if it's fake, whatever you want to call it. It's a crime. My skin is crawling even thinking about it. But these are the conversations we've got to fucking have. And it's why, like, these are the hardest streams, because like, people, it's going to make most people that even just come for a little while uncomfortable and want to leave. But, like, this is the real shit. This is the real world. This is reality. And you can't run away from it.
Him 15 was too old. He wanted her to be between 4 and 7. Thousands of files were moving between hands, with users competing for attention by finding the most shocking content they could. In one chat, a user claimed to have groomed a British person in...
So, I know, like, channels make their name for doing this, and you develop an audience for it. But I always give, like, people that devote their lives to this, to building a channel like this, like, props. Like, for one, you're seeing the most horrific shit. I know what that does to your brain. It fucked with me, especially, like, if you're drinking at all, it's not a good thing. But just to kind of have the guts to not really care about views, like, to understand you're not going to get the views that you might get if you was talking about something a little less uncomfortable, right? I always give, like, their props. Like, I should be a good YouTuber and link to shit. And when I start the new channel, I'm definitely going to do that, because I'm coming to understand this, like, a really fucked up thing. I just do it because I'm nobody. It doesn't really matter, and I'm kind of lazy. I've always been a bad YouTuber. It's kind of like the running joke with me. But I need to be a better YouTuber and give people their props, like, in the credit, to where people can actually go check them out, because I really appreciate the people that devote, like, all of their time to this, because, again, the mental shit that you have to go through to devote yourself to this, but and understanding that you're not going to get the viewership like, playful cat videos are going to get you.
Into carrying out a murder. Whether the killing actually happened was never confirmed, but the fact that someone was even boasting about it seemed to say enough. And eventually, it wasn't just kids posting in these spaces. The group had started attracting adults, men who didn't need to be groomed or coerced. They already knew what they wanted and how to find it. In Michigan, a 47-year-old man named Richard Densmore was indicted on 5 counts related to CSAM. He was a veteran, and online, he used the handle Rabid. He ran a Discord server called Sewer, where minors were streamed harming themselves and performing on camera. In one video, he filmed himself sailing toward what he called CP Island, a place he claimed held his stash. And in Florida, police arrested 34-year-old William John Scott Tulco Jr. His screen name was iKids666. His Discord bio read, "Unfathomably based father with the assault-loving daughter." He was active in multiple comm groups and had been for years. Inside this network, suffering became the currency. And for the people running it, there was always someone new to...
That's just fucking nasty. And I remember, like, back in the day, Destiny was talking to this father-daughter duo that claimed they were having sex with each other, and it was like the weirdest thing ever. And now I have to think, like, were they a part of, like, this sick shit? Like, it's... Again, and I've done a lot of streams on, sexual assault, on the problem of sexual assault in America. And most times, like, when you bring those words up, usually the connotations go to... So if you're a person that hasn't experienced sexual assault, usually your mind will go to, like, the Catholic Church, or maybe, like, because every once in a while on the news, if you watch the local news, I used to watch local news. I don't anymore. I assume it's still true that every once in a while they'd have a story about a local pastor. Usually, or if you had experienced sexual assault, usually, I'm not saying for everybody, but most people experience sexual assault within the family, or a very close family member, or a close friend of the family. So a trusted family associate, and so that's what their brain would go to. But just the truth about sexual assault is it's everywhere. All across the world, every religion, every not religion, whether you're theist, atheist, agnostic, it doesn't matter your ideology. Sexual assault is happening at a growing rate. All of the statistics show it, especially now that more and more people feel more and more free to report it, even though reporting it, usually nothing happens. But there's more access to reporting it now than ever, and the rates are just it's just fucking everywhere, and it's something we've got to come to terms with as a society, and then on top of that you have these accelerationist extreme groups that are going to really take advantage of that, and you even see just people taking advantage of just common day situations now. ICE officers are allowed to cover their face, to not have identification that they're federal agents. So people pretending to be ICE officers, masked, are abducting women and raping them and harming them. And, it's just the human race and sexual assault in America and all across the world is out of fucking control. There's Buddhist monasteries over in Asia where child sexual assault is just fucking out of control right now, and has been for decades upon decades upon decades. That's not something you really think about when you think about a Buddhist monastery. That's, again, a lot of people's brains are going to go to the Catholic Church, but it's a problem in the Buddhist fucking monasteries too. It's a problem fucking everywhere. And we've got to stop running away from these problems.
Spend it on. The first major break came in the summer of 2021. Bradley Cadenhead, the teenager who started it all, was arrested by the FBI. His laptop was found during a search warrant containing over 20 images of underage girls engaged in inappropriate acts. He pled guilty to 9 counts of possession of CSAM and was sentenced to 80 years in prison. Group 764 didn't collapse when Cadenhead was arrested, but it marked the moment things started to surface. By 2022, the FBI's investigation had already grown beyond a single name. That autumn, a team from the FBI traveled to the Europol conference and gave a closed-door briefing to European law enforcement. It was the first time investigators in Germany and France had seen just how widespread the network had become. Interpol joined soon after to help coordinate the growing caseload. Over the following year, the response widened. New criminal cases were filed in the United Kingdom, Germany, and multiple US jurisdictions. Europol issued a formal intelligence notification, warning of a new kind of grooming cult, one designed not just to exploit, but to radicalize, corrupt, and inflict serious harm. That same year, Discord confirmed it had removed more than 130 servers and banned over 34,000 accounts tied to the network, and the FBI issued a national warning and formally classified 764 as a Tier 1 domestic terrorism threat.
Again, are we still doing that? Now that the FBI has been completely gutted, and we now have a memorandum forcing all of government awareness to be on Democrats and George Soros, right? Are we still looking at this? I don't know. Maybe. I'd say the probability is unlikely.
All 55 field offices across the United States were now involved, and the RCMP in Canada also released a public bulletin. A US senator even pressed Discord's executive team for answers, and Telegram announced its plans to provide some user data to authorities in a bid to help tackle the growth of 764. And by May 2025, the FBI had opened more than 250 active investigations. So that just leaves us with one question. Where are they now? You'd think things would have started to slow down, but in 2025 alone, more than 15 people have been arrested across the world, all tied to the same cause. On January 21st, a 17-year-old known online as Ching was arrested in Romania. He was part of XVN, a subgroup linked to 764. Investigators say he sent hundreds of bomb threats to schools and synagogues in the United States and the UK, along with hospitals and government offices.
That's why, like, when you have a rash of shootings where people start putting memography or ideological references on their ammo and their weaponry, like, maybe you shouldn't be just like coming out full guns blazing saying it's left-wing radical extremism, transgender. Maybe you should actually care about what is actually behind all of it, right? Like, there's so many of these groups out there. That's why I say, like, doing a deep dive on 764 is going to be impossible. It's the ideology we've got to do a deep dive on when it comes to this, you know, and then a deep dive on Order of Nine Angles and accelerationist groups like that. I think needs to be a focus. It's going to be, I'm going to be trying to devote some of my free time towards these focuses, because I think that these are important issues that we need to be talking about. This one is probably the most important. Order of Nine Angles, these accelerationist groups, that's going to take some pretty good and well needed, like, state and federal surveillance of problematic peoples, and I don't even know how you flag them, but I'm sure they have a system, and we've got to have a conversation about the internet. But this is something like parents need to be aware of. Parents not only need to be aware of it, they need to be aware of where it's happening, how it's happening, what are the signs of it. Like, the conversation I had with my daughter learning about this was, you know, like, if anybody ever tries to pressure you or blackmail you for anything, for any reason, to do harm to yourself or to another person or life being, you need to come to me immediately so we can take it immediately to the police. Immediately. And she needs to understand the importance of that. Right? Because they're not going to target me. They're going to target her. Man, I'm getting goosebumps just fucking thinking about it, man. I don't want to be watching this today. I really don't.
In Romania. He had also coerced
Sometimes
teenage
you gotta
girls
do
in
what
the
you don't
US
wanna be doing.
into producing explicit material and pushed them into self-harm. Then, on January 30th, the US Department of Justice announced charges against 4 members of cult. They were accused of grooming at least 16 minors, coercing them into creating CSAM and sending images of self-harm. All 4 faced the possibility of life in prison. On February 12th, a teenager in Bolzano, Italy, was arrested. He had been collecting weapons, manufacturing explosives, and, according to police, was planning to create a snuff film. He was charged with terrorism, illegal possession of firearms, and the distribution of CSAM. He had links to both 764 and the Order of Nine Angles. And in the same month, another arrest made headlines. Aidan Harding, a member of 764, was charged with possession of CSAM. He had also allegedly been planning a mass casualty event. Police found 20 firearms at his residence. Jairo Jaime Tinajero also...
Now, again, like, when you see, like, the swastika, more than likely they do have a neo-Nazi ideology. But again, with this meme culture thing, it's not an automatic certainty that they have a neo-Nazi ideology. It could be just this edgelord thing that they're trying to portray. especially with a group like 764 who has this, the ideology itself is the harm you're doing on the internet. You can come at that from a wide variety of fucking ideologies, races, sexes, genders, there's really no limit if you're targeting the right amount of people. And that's another thing that we're really going to be focusing on, is that they have kind of narrowed it down to a science of the right kind of person to target. And this is something that I've kind of talked about in a broader sense when it comes to all of the different cults that I've kind of followed through the years now. Is when it comes to like enigmatic cult leaders, they all seem to have a sense of the type of person they should and can target. And now that seems to have come down to a science that can be put onto fucking files on the internet and translated to like, masterclass courses that you can teach people how to target the right kinds of targets to suck them in. And again, as you have an economy and a society that is more and more becoming top heavy, the fucking strains on the lower ends of that and the strains on those children is easy prey for fucking predators. It's easy prey, especially if they have a fucking hard line into the house. That's easy prey for them. And all the while, we're thinking we're doing the good thing, man. We think we're doing it right. Like we're trying our best, and we're making dinner, and we're going to work every day, and we're not protecting our children because we can't, because we don't even know the fucking threat. We have this general sense of the threat.
Pleaded guilty to multiple charges, including racketeering, CSAM production and distribution, cyberstalking, and conspiracy to murder. Along with another member, known as Vitali, Tinajero had planned to murder a 14-year-old girl who had cut off contact with them. The plan involved acquiring a firearm and dissolving her body in acid. They had already coerced her into sending explicit material. They also targeted a 12-year-old girl, pushing her into self-mutilation and urging her to end her life. Authorities confirmed they had coerced at least 3 minors in Kentucky alone. Police in Spain also arrested 23-year-old Hugo Figueroa in late February. He had threatened a mass shooting and bombing in Valencia, which triggered evacuations across the city. Figueroa had ties to both 764 and 09A and operated under aliases like Neo Hitler 666. His electronics were seized and charges are pending. Then, on March 14th, 764 member Jack Rocker was sentenced to 7 years in prison in Florida. Investigators found over 8,300 videos and images of CSAM in his collection. His hard drive included folders labeled with aliases and one folder marked trophies. On April 3rd, a 28-year-old man from California was arrested and charged with attempted possession and distribution of CSAM. According to court records, he had coerced minors into producing content that included extreme self-harm and sexually degrading acts. In some cases, children were forced to carve names into their skin. Others were encouraged to take their own lives. And on April 29th, 2 senior members of 764 were taken into custody. Prasan Nepal, also known as
So in these Discord servers, and this will be something that we get into more as we delve deeper into Order of Nine Angles, they have these watch parties, and then they have these like, it's like this trading system of these violent, sadistic, disgusting acts, and they'll trade them around with each other. Again, some of them is people being murdered, some of them is children being raped, some of them is getting kids to carve specific names or memology into their skin. Some of it is killing pets, getting their siblings involved with the acts. And it's just like creating chaos. And all these households where there need not be chaos, where some of these households might be struggling. These children, parents are working, and now, they want us to work longer. They want to raise the retirement age, because they want us working longer, and kids are isolated now more than ever. It's the perfect breeding grounds. And we've got to be taking this shit seriously. And I just don't think that the United States government is taking this very seriously right now. I just don't think that.
Rippy and Leonidas Varagianis, known as War, were charged with running a child exploitation enterprise.
Yeah, and
they had led a
Puff.
subgroup that groomed and extorted.
Yeah, all these edgelords that want to be murderers. Yeah, put them in gin pop. We'll see how tough they really are.
Minors through Discord and Telegram. Nepal was arrested in North Carolina, and Varagianis was detained in Greece following an international notice from US authorities. On May 1st, in the United Kingdom, cult member Richard Ehimir was convicted of fraud and possession of CSAM. He had used stolen personal data to blackmail victims and was issued a 10-year sexual harm prevention order. His sentence, 12 months, was suspended for 18. And most recently, on May 4th, Brazilian police arrested 3 members of a 764-aligned group that had been planning a mass attack at a Lady Gaga concert in Rio de Janeiro. The suspects had been stockpiling firearms, Molotovs, and explosives. One had live-streamed himself setting a homeless man on fire, and another had allegedly been preparing to carry out a satanic human sacrifice at the concert, targeting a child. All of these arrests happened in the span of 5 months. This can only mean one thing: 764 is still alive and thriving. Agencies across the world are working to shut it down, but for now, it still exists. It's still online, still growing, and still pulling people in. If 764 has proven anything, it's that it doesn't need a leader, a name, or even a platform. It just needs someone willing to keep it alive. And someone, somewhere, is doing just that.
Scary shit, man. I'm still going to be covering, the fascism that's going on, but I really want to get back to what I feel like I do best, and that's looking at dangerous ideologies. And this one is a new one for me. This is probably the most dangerous I've ever really looked at that I can tell. Or I should say potential for dangerous. I think still by far the most dangerous ever is fascism. But this has the potential to be more dangerous than even that, just because of the potential reach and the worldwide implications of this. If this is something that we allow to fester and grow, this could be the destruction of generations of young people. And I don't think we want to live in that world. So we've got to do something about this shit. And we've got to take, these accelerationist groups 100% serious. And I don't have trust that the government is right now. So we're going to be delving deeper into this shit. And I think I'm going to have me a couple research streams. So if you want to hang out, and as I research this stuff, I'll try to pay attention a little bit to the chat as I do it. Might be some boring streams. I don't know how interesting it'll be. But I'm going to, if I'm going to take some of my free time to really deep dive and do the research, then maybe I'm going to have to sacrifice some stream time. So maybe I'll just make a couple streams doing it. And I definitely need to get back to like the editing of the old content so I can be about the finalizing of this channel so I can really start preparing to start a new channel. All that good stuff. So, and I just, again, I'm working it's like a real job now. I'm not doing what I've always done. So I just don't have the time, and it's a really weird schedule. Really weird schedule. So I guess I'm about to eat some dinner and go to bed because I wake up super early in the morning. If I can go to sleep after watching this shit. But I've been doing it for a couple days, so don't let me pretend like I'm not going to be able to sleep. I'm going to sleep like a baby. But I can't get it out of my head. And I've always had an overactive, over-imaginative brain. So I see all the images. It's not pleasant for me. Not pleasant at all. But I think that this is the stuff, that we have to be looking at. We have to understand what's out there. We have to know the real threats. The president can point his finger at Adam Schiff. I don't think Adam Schiff is the threat, bro. I just don't. I don't think transgender people are a threat. I think this is a threat. I think this is what we should worry about. That's me personally. But I think that that's pretty fucking common sense. And I just can't trust that our government gives a shit about the real threat now. So we'll be taking a look at all of it. I want to have a room. I think I have 2 days off. I think I have Thursday and Friday off, or Friday and Saturday off, something like that. I'll have to look. So if anybody wants to come and talk, we can talk. If not, I think I'm going to start doing a couple of these streams like in StreamYard. So if people want to come in and talk or watch shit with me, that they can. I'm paying for it. I need to be using it more than I am. But like my rooms just aren't much fun anymore. Like I get a couple people in and I love those conversations, but I never get I remember rooms where you might get a G-Man or a fucking Matt Powell or, man, those were the days. I miss talking to people that wanted to argue with me. And, I was always drunk before. And I'm not drunk anymore, so I wish people would come in and argue with me, but they never do. They'll be in the side chat, but they'll never come in and argue with me. So maybe it'll happen. Maybe it'll happen. But I smell dinner, so I think dinner's done and ready. So I'm gonna go eat, and I'm gonna stop watching this fucking horrible shit for a while. Maybe watch some Big Brother. I've been catching up on. So I watched last season, or the newest season. I just finished that, so I'm watching the season before because I stopped watching it for a while, and that's just like sacrilege. Big Brother is the shit. It's the shit. I don't even care if it's staged. It could be my WWE. I don't give a fuck. I love it. And I miss just the deception. Like, human beings are evil. We're evil, as we've seen today. But at least it's a entertaining kind of evil that we can appreciate as that good old-fashioned kind of evil. Just the normal, oh, shucks, I'm going to lie to you. Not this, what I put you through today. And I do apologize, but again, this is what I have to do to you. We have to be aware of these things. And with that, I do want to, once again, my awesome new intro. Thank you so much, Geo Sam. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you soon.